Which Twitter DM automation tool is better, Scrapely or Drippi? Well, I'm going to show you in this video which one is the best for automating Twitter outreach in 2026 from someone who sent 1.1 million cold DMs on Twitter, and I've actually used both tools. Now, full transparency, I am the founder of Scrapely, but I'm going to give you my honest opinion on which one works best for which kind of business owner, and at the end, you'll actually know which tool makes most sense for you, right? So, very first thing, let's go over to the pricing for the features and the actual pricing of it, right? So very first thing, on the solo plan, they're basically the same cost monthly, around $100 per month for one Twitter account. Now, when they start to actually be very different, and you'll see this as a theme, is that Scrapely allows 450 DMs per day, so 13,500 DMs per month, because that's the Twitter limit on per account sending every single day. But Drippi limits you at 200 DMs per month. And it's a bit misleading because on their website, you'll see it says 2,000 DM credits every single month on your solo plan. But the problem with that is that when you actually look into it and that you start using Drippi, you'll see that each DM consumes 10 DM credits. And they say this later on, but it's not actually advertised very clearly. So you think that you can send 2,000 DMs per month, but it's really only 200. And if you want to send more DMs, well, you can see you can actually use your own official XAPI key, which is Twitter's API, but it costs you 1 cent per DM, which gets very expensive at scale. And it's almost like a second subscription on top of actually using Drippi, right? Now, the good thing here is that you do have access to 200 enrichment credits on the solo plan, so you can actually just start testing that out, right? With Scrapely, there's no enrichment plan on the solo plan. However, everything changes when you go to the agency plan because actually Drippi just keeps on getting more expensive. You can still only send 200 DMs per account per month. And now you have 5 million lead credits per account per month, which is also a little bit misleading. And I'm going to get into this a little bit later, right? But we can see here, you still have 200 enrichment credits per account. Now you're on 3 accounts, and this will go all the way on probably, around $50 per month per account. I'm going to assume. I didn't check their entire pricing because I didn't buy that plan. But specifically for these, it's just going to be basically pricing per account, and you'll get more enrichment credits and more DMs on those accounts overall. But you're still stuck at that 200 DMs per month per account, which means around 7 DMs per month on your account, or 7 DMs per day per account, which is really, really low for cold outreach, right? Scrapely over here, you have 25,000 enrichment credits per month for $500 a month and 10 accounts. So you can see here, you're getting a lot more DMs and a lot more enrichment credits for pretty much like cheaper actually on this. And you have 10 million lead credits per month. Now, the one thing that you might be asking is, hey, Scrapely, when I'm getting 10 accounts, I only get 10 million lead credits. However, on Drippi, I would be getting close to 50 million, right? Which is true, but this is, as I was saying, this is a little bit of a hidden twist that they don't really talk about on their pricing page. The 5 million lead credits are for leads that you scrape, so not filter. So let's say that you scrape a cold email agency's list, right? Or maybe even Instantly AI, right? Instantly.ai, a cold email software. What happens, let's say that they have, just for example, 1 million followers. They don't, but just using it as an example. Then let's say that you filter down to 50,000 leads because you only want founders, and CEOs, and they have those keywords in their bio, right? So now they will still deduct 1 million leads from your 5 million leads credits, right? Even though you only got 50,000 back. However, on Scrapely, we would only deduct you 50,000 because that's all that you're actually filtering down. You're not holding on to those 1 million plus leads, right? So that's how that it works. It's a little bit different across the two, and it's kind of hard to actually know this kind of stuff unless you've used both. And both have API access, although I'm going to touch on this, on how advanced each one is, right? Now, both do have an enterprise tier. So you can see here for Drippi, it starts at $2,000 per month for 25 accounts, and you can keep on scaling. And Scrapely has a custom rollout for 10 plus accounts. So we can help you with volume-based pricing, depending on how many accounts that you choose and what your use case is, how many enrichment credits, et cetera, right? It's also good to know that both tools have free trials. You can both go and test them out, right? Now, let's move on to the DM volume and scaling, right? So which is really built for volume and scaling? Well, at this point, you've seen it. You should probably know by now that Scrapely just supports better volume and more scaling for actually the same price, if not cheaper, right? So with Scrapely Spend, with just 10 accounts, you can be sending up to 4,500 DMs per day. I don't recommend this because you don't want to be burning your accounts and getting them very close to the ban limit. However, that is a maximum that you could go to. Realistically, we normally send around 100 DMs per account per day. And if we're trying to be more conservative, then 50. But that still allows you a lot more volume than just Drippi's 200 DMs per month per account total. And the good thing with Scrapely is that you don't have to pay every single account as you scale up that you have to keep on paying just to get more enrichment credits, more DMs, or even paying outside externally to Twitter. You can just pay Scrapely's flat pricing, and there's not going to be 3 different invoices coming in at the end of the month because of that, right? So that also keeps your pricing and your actual like cost for the outbound relatively straightforward because it's just one bill, right? Super simple. Now, obviously, as I said at the start, they're both for AI-powered outreach, right? That whole buzzword AI, right? Now, I would say both are pretty much similar in terms of the quality of the AI personalization for your DMs and your outreach, right? Like for your cold outreach and for the follow-ups, right? Now, this is pretty good, right? The only thing that Scrapely would really match above it is because it also has website context if the lead has their website in their profile, right? Other than that, both of them are using the lead's bio, their tweets, right? Their name, stuff like that. And realistically, one that you're sending outreach, you're using their first name, their company name, and then sometimes if you can get this based off their website, right? That's again, if you can with Scrapely, right? Then we would be saying, hey, inserting their like ICP type. So like it might be like Bob saw that Bob Leads is targeting B2B SaaS founders. Let's just say that, right? Hypothetically, if that were true, then it would seem a lot more personalized and just, hey, Bob saw that Bob Leads is doing blah, 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 right? So that can be something that you can definitely use, right? So verdict, I say both are tied though, because in real actual practice, it doesn't make a massive difference unless you are really doing something like you're selling lead gen, then calling out their type of leads is pretty useful. Other than that, there's not a humongous use case. And I don't think for most offers it's going to make a massive difference. Lead scraping and enrichment. So I talked about this before with lead scraping. You basically have a little bit of an artificially lower limit on Drippi than what it advertises. But I would have to say, you're not going to be even remotely getting close to 5 million leads that you even have to scan per account per month. Because realistically, with Scrapely, right? Let's say that you're sending the max 13,000 DMs per month, right? That means that you need 13,000 filtered leads per month per account. It's not very hard to do that if you scrape like around 100,000 to 500,000 followers, right? In that ballpark. Depends on whether your filters are, whether your niche is. I'm not making any promises, but obviously you don't have to go and use all those 5 million. So there, on either tool, you won't run into any sort of lead scraping limits, right? Number 2, for the enrichment, this is where you would have run into a limit and would have to buy more credits. Drippi only gives you 200 enrichments per account, but Scrapely, you have 25,000 separated on those 10 accounts. And if you want more, then we have separate credit packages that you can use that are, I can say a lot cheaper than adding a Drippi account, 100% for sure, right? So whether this means that you can actually start enriching and setting to those without being capped by your DM volume or by your enrichment volume, right? Very, very useful. On that part, Scrapely definitely wins. Now, the biggest feature gaps, the number one feature gap, I would say, in terms of Scrapely for direct revenue attribution that Drippi just does not have right now is the AI setter, right? So this is pretty important. Something that replies to positive responses or even maybe negatives or neutrals, however that you want to categorize it. And it can do all this, handle objections and book meetings for you 24/7 across all of your accounts, right? So you can't really do this with a human team, or if you did, it costs you thousands of dollars per month for them to be always in the inbox and replying correctly. The closest thing that Drippi has to this is their auto reply. So they can reply, they have some smart inbox filters, but really there's no AI agent that they have that can handle autonomously booking calls. That's just not a feature that they have, right? Also, second thing, Scrapely has a native XChat integration. If you were on Twitter at all in like the last year, you would see that Twitter was moving to XChat instead of just their messages inbox, and that was encrypted. And therefore a lot of the inbox tools just did not have that. So Drippi, unfortunately, they don't have that, right? Because as of right now, April 8th, 2026, their inbox has been down for the last couple of months. And it doesn't actually function. Even though they can send DMs, you cannot actually have a Unibox like how Scrapely has over here, where you have all of your accounts, they're like sending, and you can organize it super useful, right? So that is something that Scrapely has. You can send DMs with XChat, and you can also actually have a Unibox with all of your accounts, which is useful if you don't want to use the AI setter for whatever reason. You can still have a human setter helping you out, right? And this is a conversation that we had pretty recently with like the AI agent who actually booked a call with a lead, and you can see super useful. Speed to lead, it was at 9:12 a.m. The response at 9:12 a.m. super useful, and of course, right, speed to lead is super important. I'm not going to show all of the examples, but it's just very useful to have, especially without having to hire more VAs to handle responses. Now, APIs and integrations. This is really useful, I would say, if you are running multiple accounts, like 10 plus, you're an agency or you're a sales team, you want to integrate with your LinkedIn tool or with your email sending tool, right? And you want to actually have this whole ecosystem of outbound, so it's connected. Because normally people will enrich their email leads, find them on LinkedIn or vice versa, and they have some sort of integration with like Clay or their CRM or whatever, right? This Scrapely has over 18 endpoints, right? So let me just show this quickly onto the documentation page. You have all of these endpoints that you have access to manage your accounts, to start scraping leads, to look at your campaigns, to look at how that they're doing with the analytics, to look at your CRM, send actual DMs, right? Schedule tweets. So you can manage a whole lot of your Scrapely infrastructure here with just, Claude coding up something simple for you, or if you have a specific automation or dev that you can actually tell them to actually do, right? Now, Drippi does have an API, but again, it's not as deep and there's not as many useful endpoints as there is with Scrapely, right? You can look at your lead sources, you can get your campaigns, which are called automations here. You can look at your accounts, but there's nothing really like looking at your analytics, looking at the CRM. You don't really have that functionality. And when you're trying to integrate things across your stack, when you get a response, then doing this and this, right? Having these custom automations is really useful. However, if you're just running Twitter DMs from one account, nothing else, and you're just like a solo founder and you don't want any other tools or you don't have any other budget for other tools, then I would say that Drippi is fine. Even though you're not going to be able to send as many DMs, it's a lot easier to do that because you don't need like any API layer for that, right? But if you are using any form of other tools and stuff, I would highly recommend Scrapely just because you have way more features to integrate and it'll make your life so much easier managing those accounts, right? So the last thing before that we come to the conclusion of who it's for or not is account safety and stealth infrastructure, right? So when your accounts get suspended, nobody wants this, right? Which is why we at Scrapely can help you source verified, trusted accounts for Twitter to do outreach on, so you don't have to risk your main accounts or your team's accounts, right? And also, it sends 100% cloud-based, so you don't need your computer to be on 24/7 to be sending DMs, which some other tools do, right? Now, Drippi, they don't have any account provisioning. You might be able to contact them for that, right? But again, that's something that you would probably have to set up if you just have 10 accounts or something, because again, you have to manage the proxies and the browsers and all of this technical stuff, which adds just more complexity to it all. But one thing, they are also 100% cloud-based, which is useful at scale, right? Now, the verdict, I would say choose Drippi if you only want to try out the 200 enrichment credits per month on the solo plan and you don't want to automate any DMs because they offer that on the solo plan and Scrapely doesn't. However, I would say choose Scrapely if you're an agency or go-to-market team because there's so much more feature density that you'll be using to save time and get way more responses and just be way more efficient. When you're using 10 accounts, you have cross-platform enrichment from your LinkedIn leads, your email leads, you can throw them into Scrapely. You have an AI setter for handling all of the leads, right? Full API access with deep access across like all of the kind of functions that you want, and also flat predictable pricing. So you're not paying XAI and Drippi and other enrichment credits. It's all just one flat invoice, so it's super predictable billing, right? So if you're a B2B outbound agency or you run a go-to-market team and you want to try out Twitter outbound, then book a call here. It'll be in the pinned comment or at the bottom of this doc, which will also be in the comments and the description of this video. Thanks for watching.